Don't stick it up. All right, I'll call this meeting of the budget workshop back together. I'm ready.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So we have just kind of a typical presentation that we have done over the years, and one of the first ones that is here while we wait on IT. I will check with him where he's at, but Mr. Kircher is here. And again, in your budget book, Dennis, just so you're aware, in behind the commission tab is a letter from the extension with the request on it for what they are. And Patrick, if you don't mind, just turn on the mic. But I know he's here to present his request, and this is part of your budget. So I'll pull up the worksheet. So
Ms. Hamilton had asked if I brought anything, and I thought it's almost been 6 months, so I'm gonna go ahead. I know you guys got going on, I'm probably gonna go over it all, but this is just an update on where things are at with us. And I thought for your light reading, maybe you needed something to push you to sleep later this evening. But anyway, like I said, just wanted to,
that looks
I
pretty
guess,
clear.
throw out that we are back in business. We're back to doing what we do, and 4-H is blowing and going hard. Ryan's been active in taking a lot of kids and going. I've had a couple programs lately, and I'll even throw out one that we've got coming up on Thursday on carbon credits in Clovis for producers to try to get a little better handle on that. Our ICANN program, we're back in the schools again and doing that outreach effort. And so I come to you guys and just request, we've had, due to the state mandate for the 7% increase for higher education, that's what we're coming to you guys and asking for. We've been flatlined the last 3 years with no increase. So like I say, we come solely by request for the state mandate, nothing more than that. And I would stand for any questions. Yes, sir.
Any light on the status of the 4-H program at Baptist Children's Home?
All intentions that we've been led to believe that they still plan to be engaged and active. Ryan has been in communication with the leadership there. So we are optimistic that things will maintain some degree of normalcy. I'm really not, I don't know any more than that, Mr. Savage. Like I say, that they have led us to believe that they plan to continue to be active. And that's kind of the indications we've been given. But we know nothing more than that at this point.
We don't know if it's getting time to, tagging dates. Livestock is approaching.
Yes, sir.
Are they acquiring any of them?
I do not know. I know they let go of all of their steers, so they have no cattle on feed. The last I was told, they were planning on getting somebody back in to kind of oversee the livestock side of things, but I have not been privy to any other information than that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any more questions on their budget? All right.
Thank y'all. Sure appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, so what you see up there is the one that is reflected with the amount that he submitted. That is the amount that has been plugged in, and then you see the historic amount of what y'all have funded the last 5 years. And y'all do not have this printed off and in yet because you're still trying to, like EPCOG will present, Extension presents. There's several of the other things that'll have to be figured in here, and then we'll make sure it's in your binder. These need to stay. They can't go with y'all today. Sorry. Okay. So I think now we can run over to probate. Kendall, Judge Terry? Here's probate. This is like the most fun budget that Lily and I do the whole time.
Mine's tiny. Y'all need to have compassion on the probate office. So everything stayed the same. Looks like the actual salary stayed the same from 2017 all the way to 2022. $20,040. $20,024. So looks like PRA retirement went up a little bit. FICA is the same. Group insurance really went up. $400 on retirement health insurance, $5 for workman's comp, and $30 on workman's comp premiums. Mileage per diem, that's probably going to be pretty. That may be a little low now that they're going to kind of open the COVID. We have our first affiliate meeting in Albuquerque in June. They've already announced that we'll have our winter conference in February, and it's going to be live if nothing changes. So mileage and per diem will be close at $400. We may go over a little on that. Telephone stays the same at $600. Office supplies, that's just for paper. I don't really require a whole lot of office supplies. The $500 for printing and publishing, that's another new item. That's just to have more seminars for the legal assistance resource program that the state bar helps me put on. And we're just going to use that to have another one this fall. And my intentions are to try to have one every year, once a year. And then also, like I reported to you at the last county commission, they can go online on YouTube now, and you can get them that way as well. And that's for medical power of attorney, standard power of attorney, but it's a really good resource. We put $500 in there for that. Education's just for education for expenses for the probate, and then subscription and dues is just the affiliate prescriptions or subscriptions for $25. I requested $1,000. This laptop is 2 years old. We got it when I took office. It's already crashed once, and they've already put one motherboard in it. So just for a buffer for assurance, I don't have any intentions of spending the $1,000 for a laptop. But if this motherboard goes out again, we'll have to buy another laptop. That's why I put $1,000 in there for small equipment.
Just looking, so right now you have 400 left. You haven't spent any in mileage and per diem, so you should be good for your June conference. But if you think we need to address that for next year with 2 travels, then now's the
Oh,
time.
now is the time.
Because you had requested 4, but if you feel like we need to go up,
Well, if that's, mileage and per diem for a hotel room for June is $111 at the DoubleTree. I don't know if y'all booked y'all's room yet. So there's 200, and then, 100 or 200 for mileage. And if we do that twice, well, it needs to be about $800 if we're going to go back to live now, or, in conference live. So that might be a pretty good adjustment there. The rest of them I'm very comfortable with. Pretty low maintenance. And once again, I've already said it once, but I want to thank Amber and the county manager's office and Gary, the maintenance, for remodeling my little office. We put new carpet, we put a plexiglass in there. So we're COVID kind of compliant now. And I don't do a one-on-one consultation or meeting with the public unless they request it. Most of the time, they already have the forms filled out. I go to the clerk's office. Ms. Parks has already got a plexiglass. I try to stay on the inside, and the customer stays on the outside, and we file all the probates at the clerk's office. And Ms. Parks has been outstanding to work with, and I want to give a hat out to her and her employees. We have a really, really good relationship together.
just from the county perspective, I'm going to echo that, but the other way. It has been a phenomenal experience in terms of just our constituents' needs are being met. So thank you for your hard work and your office hours and your reliable, dependable response. We went from having someone up in the office complaining at least weekly I haven't seen anybody. Thank you. Like, it is wonderful to know that our constituents' needs are being met. We don't typically hear when they are. I mean,
Right.
that's how we know things are being taken care of. We hear when they're not, and
Exactly.
we see them when they're not. And so it's both ways. The support has been phenomenal, and your numbers reflect that from your annual report that you presented
Absolutely.
last month.
Thank you very much. One of the things I do want to let you know on the office hours, we're still mandated by the Supreme Court Justice. We don't have office hours. We have appointments. So they still don't want us to come to the courthouse and have office hours Tuesday and Thursdays from 8 to 10. They still recommend and still mandate that we have by appointment only. Bernalillo County won't even do an appointment. It's all Zoom or over the internet. They won't even meet a person in face to face. But I don't feel that way. We're fine. When they call, most of the time I come that day. If I can't, I'll come the next day. So the customers really, really don't have to wait on me. And it's been very rewarding. We've really helped a lot of people in Roosevelt County. That's really the only adjustment, if y'all would consider that one adjustment for 2 trips to affiliate meetings and the conferences. The rest of it looks fine to me. And I would stand for any questions or would like to submit the budget as on screen.
That was for your
That's for posters, newspaper
meet.
ads for
Well, if
the.
you wanted to do 2 of them a year, I mean, it's $500 for one meeting. I mean, if you wanted to do 2,
That'll cover it.
cover it.
Yeah, it would cover it. Yeah.
But I really think that's a great deal what you're doing for the community, for the older people. A lot of people don't have money to go to a lawyer and learn
Exactly.
stuff. And I mean, it's great. I'd like to see more if
Okay.
we get time. I mean,
No,
I'd be
I'll
willing.
take that consideration. And if I can get them to come, that attorney's from Roswell that is assigned to our area, and she's paid by the State Bar Association, so it's already paid for. And I've already requested one, but I'll ask her if there's any way we
I
can
mean, that
do 2 a year.
can affect any member of the community. Well,
Absolutely.
I've got a quick question or comment. The 2 conferences, those are, you should utilize those things to lobby, to network. Actually, you know, just get out of the office. They don't be enough for the midwinter and the annual member. I mean, you want to be there for the full conference, right?
Right.
You want to ensure that sales will be covered.
So historically, you can see what it has been, and this 637 right there reflects the full travel from prior history here. Now hotels, we're going to see some increase for in stays, and we can certainly make it 1,000. You know, it's whatever the commission's pleasure is. It should be pretty adequate because basically they're going to have 3, and we encourage, and actually that's part of why, like all of our elected officials take defensive driving too. Instead of paying out mileage and taking their own vehicles, we use county fleet as much as we can. The assessor's office has their pickups that, you know, the judge can drive. We have the Explorer. We have lots of, well, not lots, but we have an adequate fleet to actually pull from. And we typically try to carpool, you know, and go up together. So we can set it wherever the commission would like. This one's a relatively simple one to adjust, and we can certainly do budget adjustments as needed. But if y'all want to come in there and look at 1,000, we can do whatever is the pleasure of the commission.
We're looking at 3 nights for both. And then they're during the session. I mean, you don't want to be rushed. You don't want to get to the next session. I would say, yeah. Or 2 conferences.
I would recommend at least 3 nights in Santa Fe and 2 nights summer. So that's 5 nights. So, you know, Mr. Lopez, 800 to 1,000. I'm good
Let's
with
just
that.
make it easy.
Cool.
Y'all enjoy this one. This was the most fun.
But anyway, it's a pleasure working with you guys and gals.
Yeah, it's much different now to look at that bottom line. When we were looking at that bottom line and seeing that we were doing on average, 20, 25 probates a year, they were costing over $1,000 to process. And now you hear, well, what were your
80,
80?
80. So we've,
Cut it in half, more than in half, because before, like I say, I mean, it's just incredible to see the results. So thank you for that.
and I would reiterate, the education is very, very important because you come across a lot of probates that, I really need to be here and make sure that I don't stump my toe. And there, with the situation that we have and a lot of undocumented residents and stuff in this county, the education is very, very important to make sure that we're doing the probate the correct way. It
And
really is.
we're going to adjust up. Like Liliana said, we need to have room for you to have 2 entries. I guess that should be $550. I think isn't it $225 each? So that way you can have both
Okay.
conferences, because the
Right.
probate shouldn't have the probate conference or the spring thing that y'all do in February shouldn't have the costs associated
Okay.
with it.
No, that's fine.
And just lastly, because I know this is an easy one, and I'm just being, in lieu of him waiting for a laptop to crash, why would we just invest in a new one?
Well, we did when he came on, and actually we bought the laptop and set up to where it's a mobile, because this was when we were setting up with COVID and everything else. So it's got a docking station to where he can work here, or if he works remotely, it's actually that way. And it is a new laptop. They just had issues with the motherboard.
Yeah, and I think we're good, Mr. Lopez. It's just if something happens, then we have a little buffer there. Any other questions? Thank you. Is that all
Thank
you
you.
need from me today?
That's it.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you so much.
And before we do personnel, Chase is on the way to
I thought I
do.
seen him out in the hall just a minute ago.
Okay, he may be out there.
I'm gonna let you, when you see somebody, you just let me.
I know we're
You-
kind of
you just-
jumping around, but Chase was kind enough to come back over and present on IT and everything. So let me.
It's at the very
Okay, so
top.
and you're not gonna. So it's here, and I'm just gonna have to kind of show y'all what we're looking at, because
No.
it's everywhere. So the wonderful thing about Chase is that he works it in everybody's budget. So like he said, Judge Terry, hey, put in $1,000 just in case we have any kind of issues. So probate has some small equipment IT in there. He does the same thing with every elected official and department. Like, hey, okay, so for the assessors, put in an extra 2,000 to 3,000 for miscellaneous IT in case we have a computer crash or anything. So he meets, like, each department head and elected official meets with him to assess, like, hey, where are we at? What computers need to be upgraded? What do we need to plan through IT wise? And then Chase helps them budget accordingly. So in each of the department or office budgets, you will see like a small item equipment. We'll try to touch on IT throughout, but the main thing is we want to touch on the whole as it is in terms of the contract and everything with what we do. So in your commission budget, we have an IT support line right there. And this is the stuff
he is.
that Chase helps us set up. So Chase, I was just explaining how you work with every department head elected official to help establish like a small equipment and IT budget for any kind of hardware that they need. But this is the overview of everything that we're looking at from a county perspective. And we're going to have to jump from here to the American Recovery Funds too for this place, but we can at least start here
Okay.
if that works.
Yes. So yeah, as Amber was explaining, every year I get with each department and I try to have them include a little bit of money for computer repairs if a computer dies. Also ask them about their needs, and those are in their budgets, like for new computers upgrades. This is more kind of big picture stuff that affects everybody, such as our IT support that we provide. Like I said, the miscellaneous repairs, that's always for if somebody's computer dies, there's money in the budget so I can get a replacement and we don't have to wait. Increased backups, that is just an additional backup server. I'm kind of paranoid about making sure everyone's data is backed up and it goes to multiple locations, and that's just to kind of enhance that for next year. Additional UPSs, which are just uninterruptible power supplies for people's computers in case the power flickers, which it does time to time, keeps them from getting kicked off. I have a lot of them in here, but there's just a few more that we need to put in. So under cybersecurity, we have multi-factor authentication. I briefly went over that this morning. The insurance companies are really pushing that. And I don't think at this point it's going to be for everybody, but anybody that remotes in I want to put that on their machine. So they already have multi-factor to get connected to the courthouse's internet, to get onto the network. This will be an additional layer that to get into their computers, they'll have a little app that they click on to remote in. It's just extra security. The auditors like it. The security companies like it. And it is more secure.
Before we move on, just to add to that. So before we had this MFA, but they didn't like it because it was coming to our email, and it's very easy to get your email hacked. So their whole thing was, as an insurance provider, it needs to be on your phone. It needs to be something that you have that's harder to get to, a little more protected and everything. As far as, again, we're fighting this invisible monster of cybersecurity, and these people are halfway around the world constantly trying to come in and attack. So I can tell you, I work from home and on occasion and use that to go in. It's a simple app that he installed. It gives you there's like a time limit, in 90 seconds that code works, so that you have to go in and you have the app on your cell phone, and it makes it unique. So between the MFA and he was talking about the increased backups, that was another thing that the insurance company is very specific about, having air gaps in between where you have. So not just like, hey, you have this many days, but you also have like 7 days ago or 14 days ago or 30 days ago, or you have all of this space so that if you had something come in and they had some kind of worm or
if you're
Trojan or whatever.
If your backups are online, there is a possibility that your backups can get corrupted. Right. And that, unfortunately, is just the nature of the beast. In order for things to run efficiently, you have to keep it online. And so this is just taking those online backups and putting them to an off, putting them to something that's not connected to the network. And then it provides that additional layer of protection, which is kind of what all this goes to. And what Amber was saying, when we upgraded the firewalls, which we did about a month ago, I am using the new app-based multi-factor authentication for their VPN connection that connects them to the courthouse. This would actually be an additional layer for their computers. If they're sitting in front of their computers to sign in, they actually, push that little button and put in that code. So it's just, and it's going to be for those that remote in, and it just adds that additional layer of security. Since originally we had put in there for another penetration test, depending on the results of the ones that we got, but our results were so good in discussing with Amber, we felt like y'all don't necessarily need another penetration test, at least not for another year or two. I mean, as long as the tests are good, and if they had found deficiencies like a lot, then we probably would need to do another one to make sure everything was fixed. But because the results were so good, I really don't think it's necessary. However, the vulnerability scanning, this is something this is actually an appliance that is here, and it runs constant scans on the entire network. I can log into it, and what it tells me is, this is the smaller picture stuff, all the little computers and stuff that are connected. If there's a vulnerability that it finds that it's been exploited, I can get in there and fix it. It's more of a notification thing, and it runs for a period of a year, and then the license has to be renewed. So that's what that cost is. And that actually is very beneficial, because with the amount of things that they're finding every day and the matter of all of the different things that are on the network, including printers and things like that, this notifies me like, hey, this printer, there's this update that's being exploited. And I'm like, okay, I can go in there and I can fix that. And it automatically comes off the list. So it just keeps security current on that. And then the other thing on here was upgrades to the Wi-Fi access points. What we have here are decent. At the time, they were kind of the more budget option that we put in, and they're also about 5 years old. So it's just kind of due for an upgrade on that. And I think that's everything for that. If y'all have any questions, let me know.
Now, let's talk a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears. So that was general fund. And now what we want to talk about is the recovery funds. So we have these recovery funds, and part of what they can be used for is anything that can enhance the public's access, the public connection, just anything that makes us easier for them. Yes. So we want to make sure our residents are constantly, at the forefront of how we plan out everything. And Chase has already been a miracle worker and done a lot of great work in here, like getting our speakers in here to where we can hear, and we aren't having as many concerns about that. And people online are hearing us really well. And, we do have views, and they're looking at those things. So being able to feed that. But Chase had talked about the need to do some different things and some different options in the room. So that's what I asked him over here to also talk to y'all about. He's going to do the sales pitch on what we can do to improve the experience for this room. Well, we'll see. If not, let us know, and we're happy to deliver something else. But
so you can see here, there's two different options. The 10,000, which would be, so my vision for this, and I recently redid the chambers meeting room, and I did some work on the one at Portales in their council members room. But basically what I would like to do is get away from using the projector. I mean, it's worked well, but it is probably 5 or 6 years old. And one of the things that you kind of run into over time is the bulbs will eventually burn out. They don't make, in fact, that happened to the previous model. They don't make the model anymore, so you have to pretty much buy a whole new projector. Another thing is, well, and at the time we installed it, the podium was right there. It's not as bad here, but if you have somebody presenting, and they're right here, they get, it's in the way, or somebody's here and they stand up, or even it's tall, there's a possibility. So what I would like to do is replace a projector with just a really large format TV. Basically, it's just a big screen, like an 86-inch television. The picture quality is great. You can stand in front of it and present. And there's also the option of possibly putting two in here, one here and one back there. So that way, if there's never any issues with anybody seeing anything. If you're sitting down here and you need to look that way, you can look this way. And I found that with that dual screen setup, it's been really helpful everywhere where I've put it. I mean, I've never heard of anybody having any issues seeing any of the information that they need. And then the other big thing would be replacing the microphones. So this was I put all this together in the middle of the pandemic. We were trying to put something together really quick to make it work at the Jake Lopez building. And that's kind of what this was designed for, with the wireless mics. And we kind of went with, I don't want to say a budget option, but it definitely wasn't, a very nice. But these have been great for what they are. But what I would like to do is they're going to be gooseneck mics like this, but they're hardwired. Everything ties back to an audio control back here, to where y'all don't have to worry about pushing the buttons. Everything's automatic. You don't have to worry. Yeah. Now you can push to mute, which is, they can be configured either way. They can be pushed to talk. They can be pushed to mute. The sound quality is better on them. You don't have to worry about batteries dying or things like that.
And the interference. So you remember the first time we had more. So when you hardwire these in, like Chase was explaining, there's less competition for everything that is competing with the wireless networks.
So there is, you still have the potential for feedback. That's the same with any mic. So you still have to keep them, faced away from the speakers. But when you turn it up, you can kind of hear just radio wave coming through. And especially, I have it hooked up. We don't have it used, but we do have some in-ears for people with, hearing issues. And when I hooked that up the other day and turned it on, it works, but it puts some sound over everything. And I think it's just because there's just so much RF in here from all the microphones. So this would be a more permanent solution. The mics would stay in here. We would still keep this system in case, God forbid, things get shut back down, have to move out to the Jake Lopez. We have this whole system that could still be rolled out, and we could use these, keep those other mics in here, keep that system in here, and it's always here. So it's just a more permanent installation on that.
We could use this, like you're talking about other things. So there's other events or other needs for larger public hearings. Sometimes we hit those items that we have more people, more residents that want to be part of. So if we need to have meetings out at the Jake Lopez or anything like that, we can accommodate those. So it's not like we can't store and still utilize what we have. It's just, we were trying to come up with a way to make this as accessible and, accessible both ways. I mean, we really want the commission to be able to, see and hear and get everything accommodated, but also for our residents with everything that's on. So, I mean, with the camera work and everything that we're doing, and right now the screen's on, but of course they're not probably able to read the screen. So for as little a difference as we're talking about, I mean, our recommendation obviously is to do the dual screens on both sides and to be able to have the hardwired mics, but that's, it's up to the commission at this point. And if there's something else y'all are wanting, Gary has put in the LED lights. We've done the speakers. We've got the camera. It was more of just trying to figure out the projection situation and taking care of the visual aids to where we can have, at this point, he talked about having hardwired over here. So if we want to have every item as we go up, if it's a resolution or a proclamation or whatever it is, we can have that loaded for the public to be able to see as well.
Real quick, she said I can roll this. We need our microphones on. Oh, go ahead.
So this is on the same idea. I love the two monitor things.
Mm-hmm.
We have a thing at the RCCDC that I believe y'all put in, that owl.
Yes.
Okay, I dig that thing. And I noticed that we had people like the Water Authority had their meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they asked if they could come and use that room so they could try that out to buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that thing works really well. And I know that we were doing some interviews and meeting with some public the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And people were just commenting over and over about how much better they could see and hear and the communication without all of the interruption on that thing. I didn't know if that was a possibility and what the price of that little honey is, but it works great.
It is. And I'm actually going to be going up on Thursday and installing one of those owls up in Clovis for them. So it is a very cool piece of equipment. I don't know how well it would work in here. It is more designed for if you have a room where everybody's sitting around the table, because it's a 360.
Oh, okay.
And the resolution is great and you can pick up everybody in the room. But if you have an area like this where it's mostly focused here and here, it's going to be showing the back wall, or we would have to set up something in the middle of the floor here to really make it effective.
Oh, okay.
The cool thing about it is the, it's the microphone, it's the speaker, it's the camera. It's kind of an all-in-one solution. So now if y'all had the need for, I would say, in here specifically, a setup like this is going to work the best. A very stationary, but if y'all needed to go out and, say move back to the Jake Lopez, that might not be a bad idea. Or if y'all, need to, have a meeting that y'all want broadcast or something like that. Or even if y'all are doing, well, I was going to say it's going to be kind of hard for Sean, because if y'all are doing remote interviews, usually just the camera on your laptop is going to be good. But in that situation, let's say if y'all had 3 or 4 people that y'all needed to meet with somebody remotely, you could put that on the table and they would be able to see everybody regardless of where you were sitting. So I don't think it would be a good solution for this room, but it might be really good to have as an additional resource. And cost wise, you're looking at around 1,000, somewhere around there.
Thank you.
No problem.
My turn?
Yes.
Anyway, no, I just want to mention that I like looking at history and data and research and things that prove themselves. I mentioned it this morning. Chase has, over the years, has proven himself time and time again. We need to keep in mind, and I know that I'm going to keep in mind, I've already made up my mind, that he's an expert at this. I'm going to go with his recommendation, number one. Number two, which is the biggie, it's always a money thing, but we've got to emphasize that we have got to utilize this American Rescue Plan funds, and this idea and this proposal that they're throwing out to us will cover, those monies will cover all of the above. And what's the amount again? To the tune of what? The American Rescue Plan. How many funds do we have available right now that we have to expend, or we want to expend for sure?
So it's going to be like just about 3.6.
For Roosevelt County.
Correct.
That's what I thought.
We have
That's a significant amount,
1.7.
guys. So right now with IT technology, I remember you mentioned this either a year or two ago where you said you didn't say we got to keep up with the Joneses, but
Yeah.
you said we've got to keep up with technology. We've got to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah.
We've got to stay ahead of these people that have criminal intent
Yeah.
and so forth. So with this, what he's proposing, I know it has nothing to do with really cybersecurity, but no, we're advancing from having this. This is 70s style. We need, I'm going to be blunt. It is. I mean, this is going back old age, Stone Age. But anyway, when I go to meetings, inclusive of the agency I work for,
Mm-hmm.
and we have those TV screens, and I mean, it's very high tech and very
Yeah.
keeping up.
Yeah.
So thanks again. And I'm just willing to hear you out, and I'm ready to rock, especially since we've got the monies that we can allocate.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Is there anything else y'all wanted to see in here? I mean, it's
Yeah.
a pretty small room, and so we felt limited with what we could do, but we were trying to be as efficient. I'd asked Chase, like, do we want to build something in over here and have like the cabinet? And he really likes this mobile part that he put together just in case when we need and
Yeah.
stuff. So we
So-
tried to look at everything.
Yeah. So part of it will be permanent. I'm going to try to keep that there because it fits in the corner and can be moved out if possible, if needed. Whereas the majority of the stuff will stay in here. So for instance, the projector would still be in use for the county. We wouldn't be getting rid of that. That would be utilized if we go to the Jake Lopez or if y'all need it for another function. Everything can be reused. And what I picture it as being a more permanent installation for this room, but it gives the county more options on a quick notice. If a public meeting needs to be set up and it can't be held in here, it can take 30 minutes and we can have something set up that's sufficient for everyone to talk, everyone to hear, and everyone to see, even remotely if need be. So.
Is there any way we can get like a little drone that comes and does like the one-on-one close-up? No?
We could, but it's going to cost
Later
you,
from
so.
emergency management, the sheriff's office. So just wait. Yes, sir. It'd be one on this side and one on that side. Just so again,
Well, I can see this really.
I had difficulty.
When you were having the redistricting and that guy was talking.
and it's small.
Now, we'll say one of the trade-offs that y'all should be aware of, the TV is not going to be quite this big. I mean, you have to spend like $100,000 to get something this big. But I will say that, 86 inches it's pretty big. And I don't know if y'all have been over to the Portales council chambers, but since we put one of those in, and it's a lot larger room, I haven't. In fact, I have one that's like a 75 and then an 86. And I think each one, they haven't really had issues seeing them. So I don't think it'll be an issue, but just so y'all are aware, It'll be a little bit smaller, but I think by having dual screens and each one, depending where you're sitting, is going to be close, I don't think it's going to be an issue. That would be the same one. So that's a 86. So I put another one of those at the Road Barn in their meeting room, and it's really awesome for meetings and stuff like that. The picture's great. Yep. Yep. So it's big. It's an 86.
Chase, I think that's basically all the IT stuff.
Yeah, you
Right.
know,
I mean, we talked about
outside of
each
the
and-
individual departments and
Mhm.
what their needs were, that's the big thing. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about detention a little bit. I know we threw some in there.
Yeah, we can pop over. So we have some small equipment down here.
Yeah, so I included there enough for 2 or 3 new computers. There are some there that are aging; they need to be replaced. Battery backups for them as well. I would like to. Their access points are actually older than what's in use here, so I'd like to upgrade those. The network upgrades. What I'm trying to do. So there was one point that the detention center was a completely separate facility with its own internet and its own firewall, and the courthouse was separate. But when we got the new phone system put in, everything is now tied together. So that way the phone, it's kind of all served from here. I still have the configuration over there where they're behind their own firewall. Even though they're technically behind this network, they're also behind their firewall. And it's an older one. And so what I'm wanting to do is take out their firewall and just have them be behind this network, because we got new ones here that are more than capable of serving everybody. And part of that is reconfiguring their network to where it can talk properly with this. And it'll make, well, my job easier and also Amber's job easier in accessing resources over there. Like if she needs to get into XGel or do something like that, it's going to make that process a little bit easier without compromising any security or anything like that. So those are the network upgrades. And then, like I said, I always include a little bit in there for miscellaneous repairs, because you never know when a computer's going to die or something pops up that, you know, somebody needs an extra screen for whatever reason, and it's there. So
Pretty straightforward. It's so nice to have Chase. So those are typical. They're worked into the general fund because they're every year. So we're trying to be very careful. It's very closely governed what you can use your American Recovery funds for. And anything like this that you can see historically, we've had funds for these things that are year over year. We keep those all in general fund. The only thing that we've tried to adjust over to your recovery funds are the things like your HVAC, you know, things that are going to go that are specific and tied to the COVID type stuff, or anything like that. But again, anything that's going to be year over year, we're leaving in the general fund because of the fact that these are just anticipated expenses each time.
And one more thing to add, going back to what you had said about the OWL camera, if that is something that y'all would like, it's definitely possible to do. You know, if y'all would like that as an additional resource, we might have to increase that just a little bit. You know, the cost on that's about $1,000, but just, you know, let me know on that. That's not something that I had thought of, because I just didn't think it would work in here, but it could be, like I said, a valuable resource just for the county to have, because it's very portable and can be set up. So. Any more? All right. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. So, Sean, if you want to flip on the lights, you don't really have a spreadsheet to per se.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna make sure everybody's awake. This is a great thing. Thanks, Chase.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so this is good exercise. Everybody's eyes. LED works great in here. Gary did phenomenal. Oh yeah, it's run. We're on. We're on. I don't know what I missed, but so anyways, I have no idea, but Sean is here to talk about personnel. I asked him to come in before we dive into everyone's individual budgets. As y'all are aware, HR, we have a very complicated, detailed spreadsheet that the state, Michael Steininger, all those years ago, put together, and how we go through everything. And so we have everything budgeted, and you'll see that broken out in everybody's department. But in y'all's binders, in that first recap, I think, or summary tab, there's a little sticky that says payroll, and it's kind of in your summary area, but it'll be tied to, you've got some general summary sheets of the payroll that we're going to cover. And Sean, you've got some notes, so if your mic is on.
Well, as Amber said, we're here to submit to you for your review the personnel budget for fiscal year 2023. We have adjusted this budget to reflect the recent salary study that we completed. This will assist us in retaining our experienced employees, as well as helping us to attract new qualified individuals. Right now, we're having issues bringing in individuals for the detention center and our road department right now. To give you an idea on detention, in the last 2 weeks, I've scheduled 10 interviews. Of those 10 interviews, half of them will show up for the interview. Of the half that show up for the interview, probably 50% of those won't pass the background. So we're really struggling there. We're doing everything we can. We're getting them to at least contact us about the positions. We're just not getting the individuals that we desire. So we're going to continue that. Same thing with the road department. We've lost some critical employees here lately because they've been able to get other jobs, other positions, making more money. And that's not necessarily in the construction industry, but nonetheless, they're making more money somewhere else, so they're leaving. So that's why we feel it's very important that we stay up with everybody else as far as wages and things of that nature. We want to make sure that we retain our experienced hands, especially those who may have gone off the chart on the salary study, because those are the guys that are going to be able to train the new guys coming in. So we want to make sure that we retain those guys. We want to be able to attract the new personnel coming in and start them a little bit higher so that we can get them in the door, because especially in road, we feel like we're falling behind. One of the important factors for road is we need a great portion of those guys to have a CDL. It's getting harder and harder to get those CDL drivers in right now because they can make more money somewhere else. So what we've looked at doing is adding a incentive for the individuals that have a CDL. It's in line with other incentives that we've put in place for the detention center, the sheriff's office, but that way it gives us a little more strength into drawing those individuals in, not to mention retaining our current CDL drivers. We are looking to increase the percentage of para that the county absorbs, and this is for all employees. We're wanting to pay 75% of the employee's share. That puts us more in line with other counties throughout the state, helps us to stay more competitive. In essence, it's giving them a little bit more take-home pay whenever they get that check at the end of the week. So that is another thing that we have looked at. We have received confirmation from our insurance that health insurance and retiree health will not be increasing this year, which is great because, as I understand, the last 2 years it hasn't increased. So we're very fortunate again. I don't know how long we can get that. So 75% of the employee's portion. Yep. So, and that is as high as we can go for that. But like I said, it'll make us in line with other counties.
I think right now if I recall, with the last adjustment that y'all did, we were about at 56% because we picked up like an additional 3% or whatever. So it's not I think we're about at 56% of the employee portion or somewhere around in there.
That is correct. And our biggest shortfall has been at the sheriff's department. This will get us more in line with that also and make it more level. So that'll help a lot too with those individuals.
And
Yeah.
in the sheriff's department, it's obviously a much more significant investment in our personnel over there because they are on a different para plan. So we have municipal plan that has like all your administrative staff, detention, all of that, and I think we're on MPL 2.
Yes.
But law enforcement is on the police plan 5.
MPO 5. Yep.
So they're on a different plan. There is more percentage, but that's also, another way to offset and keep and retain the employees that we have. Like Sean explained, they're just going to be taking home more at that point. And it's about a difference of right around $45,000 annually.
Total.
Yes, for law enforcement. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When we looked at the comparative for the law enforcement, for the others, because we had already tried to pick up the equal percentage, like, hey, we're at 56% for every other employee, so taking them to 75 is equal to this much percentage of law enforcement. So the difference of what we were proposing to being able to pick up all 75%, about $45,000 annually, which, I mean, that more than pays for itself just by retaining one employee and not losing them and having to retrain and recruit and start all over,
One of the other things that we've taken in consideration in this budget is the workers' compensation. As I understand it, last year after the budget was completed, they gave us a 50% discount throughout the state. We have been informed that that amount's going to go back up to the full 100% of premiums. So we have taken that into consideration also within this budget. We have also looked at the HR compliance, which covers all the training, software, cybersecurity, et cetera. We need to make sure that we keep maintaining that. That's how we're going to keep our employees safe, keep them trained, keep them going forward. As I'm sure you're all aware, we recently did the active shooter training. We felt like this was a huge success. We had Sergeant Holmes come in and Deputy Brunson come in. They did a phenomenal job of not only doing the simulation, but the biggest thing was after they did that, we went around office by office and spoke to each group of people within the office, each department. We identified things that we might be able to do to improve the safety there. I don't think we're really bad shape on any of it, but just little things that we might be able to do that in the greater scheme of things don't cost that much that we can do to make our employees safer should an actual event ever take place. So Gary and I are working on going around addressing each of these and seeing what we can get done. I think that's all I have. Can you think of anything else, Amber? Do you guys have any questions? We understand. So within the active shooter drill, whenever we did it, we locked the building down and made sure all the general public was out before we did it. Now, while that is not a reality because we're going to have people in here, the thing is we as departments know how to address it. So if something happened in here, we can tell you guys, hey, we need to go out here. We need to do this. We can tell the public how we need to proceed. And that is the goal of the active shooter drill. That way, if we've got somebody that's in the clerk's office, our people know to go lock the door and everything, grab any people, the general public, and then take them with them so that they're safe also.
We can, he's on the end.
And you know, through that, there are a few things that we've come up with that are insignificant cost. Window breakers so that people on the first floor can break a window and get out should something happen like that. And you know, those costs are insignificant in the greater scheme of things, but they could end up saving a life. So,
And Sean,
Where do you think those-
let's put one of those in here too,
okay.
just up there on the ledge so
And the
that
ladder?
it is in here if we
Okay.
need to. I don't know, how far down is it?
About 10 foot.
Okay, well, put a rope ladder in here too.
Okay.
That way we have it equipped in the event. Well, there's one that hangs on a window seal like that's specific. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So. Ooh. Any other questions?
What are y'all thoughts on payroll and personnel? I mean, we're putting forward what we are suggesting that the commission consider, and y'all will be able to see that as we work through. Obviously, we're still, I mean, we hadn't talked about revenues yet, but we're putting forward stuff that we feel like we can sustain. We're not making any kind of recommendations that we can't. We're just trying to get everyone up to the pay plan that y'all have adopted, but then the adjustment in para, we just really feel like is going to help us stay competitive in the marketplace. And that's what we're trying to do. Across the board, 81%. And that's one thing that we came up with. It's 81% because we absorbed like it was going up year after year. It's just since COVID hit, they've kind of froze it at the state level. And I'm not sure if they're using recovery funds to help offset the difference, or we know we're going to see another increase. And they had told us we were going to see one this year. So we were beyond surprised. And that's why I'm like, get that in writing. It's in my book right here that says that it's not going up. So that's where we just wait because we're on the state plans with everyone. So it's across the board, the same percentage. And it's 81 because we were at 80 and then we absorbed the 1% from the last increase that went up so that it wouldn't go in against our employees. And then did you touch on para will continue to increase? I think what they've budgeted for is about 1% split between the employee and the employer. So we've already budgeted for that in FY23, but we will see those increases continue 24, 25, and 26. Because when we talked about this, it's probably been a year and a half where para wasn't solvent. And the issue, though, isn't local governments. I mean, when you look at cities and counties, we're much more solvent than many of the state agencies are. And so that's where it's a constant conversation from New Mexico counties. And Commissioner Lopez, you may have heard about this when you were on the board for New Mexico counties, or it may have been after the transition to Commissioner Dixon. But regardless, like it's always a struggle with keeping para solvent and dealing with those markets and everything. So those are the things I have in the binder. Okay, so anything else for Mr. Andrus? So it will be, so let's address those. So I hear some chatter. So in here, y'all will, like, I don't know if y'all are looking at this sheet right here, this top one. So it talks about the positions. And one of the things that we've planned for is in the sheriff's office right now, they have 17, but you see 18 are budgeted. It's because we did budget that with the new elected sheriff, we do feel confident there will be the potential for a deputy, a sheriff to be appointed, a chief deputy. So that one is taken into consideration. So it is budgeted at that point starting January 1. So whoever is elected takes office, we have to have that funded. Now, in years past, they had not funded that one in lieu of having additional deputy positions. Those are all full at this point, but the chief deputy is something that statutorily is available to the new incoming sheriff. So budget wise, we did that. And then we adjusted like with the commission. So we know there's ones going out that like Commissioner Lee is termed out. So we make sure that we have room in the budget to be able to fill that with if somebody comes in needing benefits for a family. So all of that is worked in through HR as far as projecting anything that we did the same thing, you know, coming in and changing, making sure that that we're hitting the mark because we've inherited those challenges before when we first came in. We just didn't have the budget in there for personnel. The other thing, so we have those for the elected officials. We have the appointment for the chief deputy. And then, what's the other one, Sean? Yeah, that all of that's taken. The current executive assistant or executive secretary to the sheriff is appointed. And so we've made sure that all of that budget is adequate for, because those salaries are set by statute or by resolution and statute. And so it's not so much that as it is the benefit and the total health care costs that can change from time to time. So all of those have been accounted for. Another thing, like in our office, in administration, Carol is planning to retire. And it's her time and we know it's coming and it's September, I think is her date and everything. So we keep working on her, but we haven't softened her yet. She seems pretty determined about September. But we're just being able to plan and work for that. And anytime we know, like we've had retirements out of road and some other areas, you just make sure and you plan the payouts accordingly. So all of those things are budgeted as well, as far as paid time, their earned paid time that we have to pay out and things like that.
And likewise, on all of our positions that are open, we've budgeted for those positions to be filled. So even though detention hasn't been full in quite some time, we put money in there just in case we get lucky enough to get those positions filled.
And we're believing we will have them filled, not if.
We've come close, but we keep getting the interviews. We're going to get there eventually. So.
And like road right now, we have 4.
We have 4 open positions in road. So I think we have one of those filled, but I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. That'll leave us 3. We had decided to hold back on one of those positions simply because of the cost of fuel right now.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, we've got 4 commissioners that are real familiar with ranch, road, farming. That could be kind of like
We have one that can't do anything to talk about it.
We've tried to think ahead, and anything that might come up, we've tried to plan accordingly.
Mm-hmm. So before we let Sean escape back to the land of HR and hiring and everything, do y'all have any questions or anything in regards to any of the personnel? We've given all the department's elected officials the budgets with the personnel numbers. We will continue to fine tune those. There are vacancies, there are ongoing adjustments. So these are very much penciled in numbers, but we wanted to have something to start with as far as personnel goes and at least make our our ask and our suggestion to the commission of, hey, this is what we really hope and want to do for our staff. Yeah, none of them had anything bad to say so far. Everybody seems happy with it.
So, and it goes without saying, these numbers do take in consideration the new salary study. We've also plugged in numbers there for annual increases for merit raises. So we have thought forward to cover those also.
Prices for the ones you don't are the ones with the increase.
Yeah,
Yes.
everything's been adjusted to the new pay plan.
This is not the fixed.
No, you adjust everything as it goes. So the way we have everybody tied, like this year, y'all had a COLA, which helped a lot getting everybody somewhat caught up and adjusted. And then they also had an annual increase that was budgeted. And so all of that goes in. It's a very complicated process when you look at budgeting payroll, because you have some that, because a lot of your, like your merit is tied to your annual anniversary date, your work anniversary. So depending on when you have been here a year, if it's the first 6 months, it's one way. If it's the last 6 months. And so like in Mandy's department, she has 2 that are set by resolution that we know what they're going to be. And then you have 2 that would look at merit adjustments and everything. So you have to budget that based on where they're at, and it's the projection. So it's hard to, Sean had a headache a couple of times this year as we were learning the process.
We have, put consideration for all that in there.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys. You have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so
I don't know why I'm always.
oh, that is absolutely no fun. So let's touch on debt service if y'all are ready to keep moving. If y'all want to kind of debt service, the debt. Okay, so toward the back of your binders, you have a tab for debt service. Debt service. Uh-huh. Yes, debt service. 405, 415, 427, 428. Let me see if I can zoom.
411.
Yeah, it's like the last 2 tabs in y'all's binders.
Oh, I see it.
It is. It's very far back. So what I have up on the screen should be the first page that y'all see in your debt service. And this is what is required to put together in the budget supporting schedules. And then this is all pulled off of the NMFA agreements or the agreement with the New Mexico environment. So you can see that, for example, down here, we will be making our first payment, $32,500. That is per the loan agreement. It will take 10 years to pay off at our 0.5% interest rate with the environment. This is the other part of the money. If you'll recall, we got $300,000 in grant, and then we have about 300 and, well, I guess with the interest, $334.05 is what we'll end up paying from the loan, the low interest loan from the environment department. And that was that underground drainage project out there at the fairgrounds, that first phase really of what we were doing to enhance out there. So that's figured in. And again, that's the payment there. And then we also have the bond restructure, for the detention center. We have that budgeted. We have the emergency HVAC renovation for the courthouse here. We have the magistrate court, and we have the arena construction. And all of these I had checked with even last year. If you'll recall, when the interest rates were lower, like, hey, do we have anything callable? Do we have anything that we need to refinance? What do we need to look at? And we talked with RBC markets and capital about that. And there was nothing at that point that was callable that we needed to look at. And now we're obviously seeing those interest rates climb and everything. So we feel good about the percentages where we have everything locked in. On the far side on the column over here, the far right, that is the outstanding principal. So after this year's budget and payments and how everything will be remedied, these are the projected numbers of what is still owed on all of the county debt. So you can see the total here at the bottom is 6.168 million between all of the things that we still owe money on. And then included behind there, of course, we have further breakdowns for y'all, just talking about this is how, so the first one, like oh yeah, sorry.
All that debt service right there, the magistrate's the only one we collect money on. Everything else has to come on.
Correct. So we when we did restructure the detention center bond, y'all might recall we did that. I think it was like 2014. The lower interest rate, and we bonded against our hold harmless GRT. Yes. So that one's an intercept. So we don't make that payment. That one's actually intercepted from the taxes as the state makes those monthly distributions. Miss Liliana physically writes checks and makes those payments for the arena, the magistrate court, and the HVAC renovation. And then it's once a year that you make the payment for the environment department. So this year will be our first year to make that payment, and we will pay it off over 10 years. We do have the money set aside in that fund. We were able, as y'all will remember, as a commission, you voted and we transferred that money from general fund to that from the wind farm, because we knew the wind farm was going to be one-time money. Let's go ahead and set that there, and we have the debt taken care of. But then we were able to actually get the grant for the other half of that project. So we have all of that allocated. And you will recall also, it has been our practice since we were under DFA monitoring, we pre-fund our debt service. So we always make sure we can pay our employees and we make sure our debt's paid. So these numbers that you will see in our budget, these are what we will pay for fiscal year 23, but we actually transfer in fiscal year 24 money in, so that you always have your money for debt service in there for the next coming year. Just good financial planning, in my
This
opinion.
is a dumb question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. We can't use the rest of the tax revenue, correct?
Not for debt service, correct. You cannot use rescue funds for that, or para fund, any kind of retirement fund payments or debt service. You cannot.
What's this last one? It's general court, okay.
That's the environment department loan for the fairgrounds. So we will have. Mhm.
Yes, but we wouldn't be able to use that one.
Because it's still debt service, and we already had the loans and documents signed. Yes, sir.
Maybe it wasn't a dumb question, but-
No, it's not. I love.
Sure.
Okay, so we have magistrate court. Of course, we have to keep a running budget on that one. And in terms of where we're at, again, debt service is part of it. We do the utilities budget, building and maintenance repair. Gary is still looking at a few things for us to plug some of those numbers in. We do have contracted for the grounds. I hope y'all have noticed the improvement in the courthouse grounds with our use of our contract services. We've asked them to take care of magistrate court as well. So we've had a lot of positive response just from the grounds around the courthouse looking so nice. They've done an excellent job there. and the building insurance, property, all of that stuff has been set. And then we always budget. Y'all will remember that year that we had it budgeted to receive 12 AOC lease payments, and then the state was broke and they threatened to not pay us, and like there was all that mess. So we've just learned that we budget for 10 months of revenue, and then we receive 12, and it's great, but we, operate under the threshold and everything. And so everything looks good with here. There's really nothing new or concerning. It's just we're servicing our debt. We're taking care of our buildings and our facilities. The HVAC here is well within performance, and we aren't having any major issues with any of that.
Real quick on that, I'd like to ask, just side note, how about new judge?
So great.
Thank God I haven't had to go see him for any reason.
Well, he's running for re-election this year, so he's not new. He's 4 years in.
Right, well.
But yes,
Just wondering, because I haven't, usually they come to us or come to, yeah, if we don't hear nothing, that means things are very smooth.
they've been good tenants, and it's been a smooth process. And so we just take care of. More than that.
More than that, because we've, oh my God, you man. 6 years.
Mm-hmm. 6, I think.
Oh. Anywhere green that. Somebody's finding some barrels.
We have the agreement, and I believe it goes through May of 2034. $36. It's free. What are you talking about? If y'all have any questions specific, the debt service there isn't anything new or changed other than we've started paying on the environment department and everything. So I know this looks familiar to y'all. It's the same thing. We just keep inching it down, doing what we're supposed to be doing, paying our debt, keeping our bond rating well, everything like that. Okay, so while we're over here at this back end, let's go ahead and knock out Arch County. So Chief Lang apologized. He couldn't be here today, but they've been very busy, obviously, responding to fires, and then he's starting his harvesting and everything. So very busy moving equipment and everything, and asked me to cover, said I would be happy to do this. So one thing that you will notice in their budget that we're really thrilled about, you'll recall the commission included fire trucks for Arch in our ICIP plan. Arch had asked for that because they wanted to go after grant funding. I think it's hard to see, please. But they really wanted to be able to go after some grant funding and different things. And then this year, I received a call, and the governor's office was looking at first responders and any kind of public safety monies and anything that they could do with some reauthorization money. And of course, when they asked if if the Arch fire trucks were a priority, I'm like, that would be a fantastic fund. You just never knew what you were going to get because everybody was putting in all these different requests. So we did receive 375,000 from the fourth floor for the appropriation on that legislation. As far as the ICIP for fire trucks, they need a Class A pumper, and this is specific to a piece of equipment that they need to be able to appropriately have what is required in there. They do have one now, but it is 25 plus years old. And anyways, this is some of the struggles that they work through. Bless these volunteer firefighters with everything that they're doing. No, but they have state fire funds too. And so Chief Lang and his team have been rolling and saving the fire funds as much as possible to work toward very much like what Mill and Sand does. They just save and they keep rolling until they can get the truck that they need. The goal, obviously, for Arch at some point is to have a substation, and you have to have a Class A pumper in your substation. So being able to get a new Class A pumper would allow them to take the older one down to the substation if they were able to do that and meet the requirements of state fire. So Arch is doing very diligent work and trying to plan out exactly what they need and how they need to service their residents. And so in this, the other thing that you will see is we're trying to work to restore the commission funding. So each year y'all support the volunteer districts. And in years past, prior to 2015, like it had been about 7,000, then we cut it down in half when we went through until we got our budgets straight. And so what we've worked in there and penciled in and suggested is to restore that back to the 7,000. What we hear from our departments is that they are able to utilize this for specific things that they need that state fire doesn't take care of or EMS doesn't take care of, some kind of differences that they need. And so all of ours is just tied to, they get a letter from Miss Rivera. It talks about, here's the agreement, here's what you do. It's the same kind of procurement. I mean, they know what its procurement rules are, and we just say that this is what it's for and everything like that. And so we have penciled those in. You will see that reflected in Arch and Mill and Sand, and then in their direct budgets because it's treated as a transfer here. And then over on the commission side, y'all have transfers, and then you also have a budget because Mill and Sand and Arch are what's transfers since they're part of us. But then you also have Causey, Alida, Floyd, and Dora in the city of Portales that will be direct payments. So it's in two different places in your budget. But just wanted y'all to see that this is going to be what we're recommending. It's up to the commission. I mean, we just wanted to put it forward to say, hey, this is something that y'all can consider restoring that funding for.
And that's for each of those departments.
Well, all except the city. The city will be a different entity based on the agreement that is reached between the two governing agencies, but we're recommending the 7 for the 4 with the incorporated villages as well as the other 2 you own. So it'll be a total of 6, 42,000 roughly. It's just like any other government fund. So in our contract and in our agreement, we just talk about it has to meet the government regulations as far as what's approved to do the things. And I'm trying to think of the exact language. Village of Dora and Causey.
And so we can use their repeater tower or their.
So we acknowledge we use their repeater tower, that they respond out. They're representing part of the county. We help support. But examples are like they are limited in EMS funds to where it's just specific for EMS. But like Arch right now, they need somebody to come in and provide cleaning services to their facility. So they would be able to use these county funds for that because that's an appropriate use of county funds. So they can use it to provide training. They can use it for anything. But a lot of times State Fire will let you use their money for building repairs, but it won't always let you do certain things like EMS, as you know, is very heavily regulated, Right. And we don't have any of those. It's only what is the government procurement in terms of you can't go out and pay for meals, if you're not traveling and doing mileage or per diem. If you're just going to go out for lunch one day, then it's not an acceptable expense. Correct? No. It's just the same governmental entity regulations for that. And their budget here, you can see, is pretty easy. They've got some building maintenance in there. One thing that Arch is working on, and Commissioner Savage will be familiar with this, I'm sure, in his district, but they have an Arch community center, and they have had that building for years. And they're at a point where the board that was governing that isn't able to meet. It's hard to have that. And so they've asked the fire department to consider taking it on. So the fire department voted and said, yes, we're willing to try to take it on, but we have to work with state fire and see how we can get that classified. If we can get it classified as a training facility to receive additional funds for, how all that works. And then once they have all that worked out, then they will bring it to the Board of Commission, because ultimately y'all are going to have to bless the ability for them to bring on, because it'll become a county asset. But they've just got a lot of challenges out there in their village in terms of this space. And it would be very much like the Mill and Sand Community Center that we have, that the Mill and Sand had. So along those same lines, utilizing it for training and things along those courses. But I know Chief Lang and his team are working on that. And that's one reason that you see more in the budget for some of these type things, like the building maintenance. They thought they might get it last year. They haven't yet. He knows they'll have to have some new locks and possibly door replacements, things along those lines. So that's all worked in the event that they can move forward with taking over the community center, and that y'all are willing to do that. I don't know for sure on that one, because they already have a Class A pumper, and they're already at an ISO rating of 5, I believe. So they've already raised it significantly. I think that one thing that's holding them back is not having a substation on their ISO rating. That would be the biggest increase. Yes. So again, I have some equipment budgeted here, because there's going to be some that'll come through county fire from legislation, because you don't commingle state, county type stuff unless they come and tell us something differently. So in here, in state fire is just the state fire allotment. And that's projected each year based on their stuff. And then they budget down here with equipment, utilities, insurance. I don't think there's really anything that was significantly different. The life pack, yep. So that right down here. So operationally, you can see it's very comparable from last year. These are the capital expenses. So they wanted to look at getting a life pack, which is about $27,000. I think Mill and Sand got one this year, this fiscal year, or the end of last fiscal year. And then the $35,000 is additional bunker gear. So they had enough this year. They did some bunker gear and a tanker conversion, and then they will need to do the rest of the bunker gear for the rest of their volunteers. They did about half last year, and then they were waiting until this year's budget to do the other half. And I know Chief Lang expressed some of the concern was parts and things as it relates to the bunker gear. There may be delays in when they're able to get that, but they just went through an inspection with state fire, and that was one of the things that they were dinged on, is the bunker gear. And he was able to show, like, hey, this is where we have it ordered, budgeted, and those kind of things. So, and then Arch, y'all will recall they lost their EMS funding. Commissioner Greider and I spent some time in Santa Fe talking with them, trying to get some of this. And then they brought back and did $5,000 the next year. That was a fun meeting. So we had those fundings. We anticipate that would be about the same. They have applied for EMS funding. Arch is one of those that is like many of the other volunteer districts that Commissioner Dixon can talk to. It's just such a struggle to meet all of those burdensome requirements that the state is putting on these volunteers for EMS services. And so I know they've got a couple that are also volunteers, like for other districts like Dora and Millen or something, that are responding in Arch, but it's not primary Arch. Arch becomes secondary. So he was very excited the other day when they made an ambulance run, because it was the first one they got to run in several months, or even over a year, I guess. So it was really good to see that they're doing that, and they continue to keep up with all of it. So we have the 5,000, and they wanted to put everything toward the life pack. So all of their EMS funding will go toward the life pack next year, and then the rest of it will come out of state fire. And that's really Arch. They're pretty simple. You think so? Here. Millen fan. Document put back one little gap.
I can see it okay in paper. Same thing. Okay. We'll start with Fund 471, Mill and Sand. Okay, so revenues we're projecting, estimating if we receive some EMS service funds, about 300. Some county fires, hopefully we don't see a lot of reimbursements, but this year we've had several that we budgeted 500. You'll see again, like Amber mentioned, the $7,000, the transfer from the commission. And then pretty much theirs remain the same as the previous requested budget. With what is the notes on the 30,000?
That's okay. So that is part of the new water overhead system that they're trying to do. So they're working on that, and they're trying to get their overhead water system put in down there in Mill and Sand at their station, but they didn't know if they were going to get it done yet or not. So they've laid lines, they've put in all this work, but they still have to do some additional work. So they, like I say, they went ahead and budgeted. You see it mirrored. This will not be all expended this year. So they wanted to roll it to next year as they work through it. There's just been a lot of transition, as y'all are aware, down there, after we lost John, and then with Patty relocating and everything, they've got a lot of new transition and a lot of new leadership, and people are really trying to step up and learn the process, but it's just going to take a little bit of time to really help them get through some of that. So that's what they've budgeted for there in terms of the building.
Okay. So is there any questions on Fund 471? Okay, moving on. 472, state fire funds. Okay, revenue, you'll see the projected allotment. And we've increased a little bit some utilities. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna have to check on that one. Maybe it was on one of the repeater towers or something, maybe. Let me make a note to check on that one.
The insurance went up because we know that they have the new truck.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's the new service that will be paying a monthly fee. So you'll see the $2,500 for the repeater tower. Everything else, actually supplies, we did decrease to 2,000. Employee training remained the same. The insurance for the volunteer workers, and then employee uniforms the same. The buildings and structures remain the same, 30,000. The equipment, the 350,000, is the new fire truck that I don't know that we will see next fiscal year. I don't know. Ken said maybe they may not have it completed until the following fiscal year. I think that's kind of how everything is lately. We put, some units on order, and I don't know that we'll see them even this fiscal year. So,
And what we're also being told, like Chief Lang said, is that everything's going to increase. So they're saying even if you give me a PO and lock it in, expect a price increase. So even though they've issued a PO and they've paid the $350 for the new brush truck, they will likely end up paying more than the $350 because it's costing more to get all of the parts, the delays, everything's increasing. They're dealing with the same inflation that all the rest of us are seeing. So I know Chief Lang was saying bunker gear is going to increase, the fire units are going to increase. And again, y'all authorized the purchase of the fire truck this last year, like this fiscal year, and we issued the PO, but we won't see it. Y'all will hear that again in detention. Some of these more specialized units are harder and harder to come in with the chip shortage and everything that we're dealing with.
okay. Any questions there? Now, EMS funds. Okay, their projected amount is about 7,000. Last year we used it all on a chair that they needed for the ambulance. Millicent does a pretty good job about allocating most of it to supplies, EMS supplies, ambulance supplies. So a lot of it you'll see there is the 3,000, and then a little bit on equipment maintenance, and then some fuel if they do some runs. And then 22,000 small equipment, 2,200. What do we have there? Yeah. And that's it.
Again, we asked the chiefs to put together their budget. So they come in and meet with us, and we go through this with them, and they tell us what they need and what they want and how they want all the money to look at. So those are things that we put together with them. I don't know if we have notes for that. I just have a penciled in amount from them.
Yeah, that one, because it's EMS funds, it has to be something probably it's for EMS funds. So it might be some equipment for their ambulance.
No,
Well-
that's not equipment. Maybe
Yeah, I don't know.
like a shocker or something. Well, I don't know. What can you put on the ambulance for that? Yeah. All we have is the 2,200. I don't know what. No, the arch was all on my tax, so theirs will end up being in the, so instead of small equipment, once it costs more than 5,000, then it becomes an asset of the track. And so theirs is, instead of small equipment, they put all of theirs into like one large piece of equipment. Well, I think they budgeted 32,000, if I remember right. Hopefully that's enough. Okay. So y'all want to knock out healthcare and then we can call it a day? Since I know some of y'all have other things, and I I know we were trying to get finished up about 4 or 3, I mean. 406. So it's about in the middle of your budget book. 406. Hopefully I stuffed it. Okay, so in your healthcare budget, this is what Miss Carol helps take care of. So in it, you see that we have the GRT estimated, what's coming in there, and then the GRT is what funds the safety net care pool contribution that we have to make, and what helps pay for any kind of out of county care that is required. That 400,000, and then the 190 is pass through wash. Like that's what we collect for the Medicaid, the 1/12 that we pay directly to the state. So down here, we take 33% of Miss Carol and attribute her to our fund. And then we have our computer software for our electronic medical records, any kind of travel that we need. You can see last year we had an increase in budget with the safety net care pool because it's all based on the prior year's GRTs. And we had spiked GRTs from the wind farm, so we accounted for that. This year we anticipate those should be back down to a little more normal level and such, but we still left it running a little bit higher. So we can always come back in and do a budget adjustment and leave room there. We have hospital claims of about 25,000. You can see they've, depending on where all they're at, historically, they've been everywhere. And then we have transportation claims, again, for ambulance services, anything like that. And once we know what our safety net care pool contribution requirement is, then that frees up some monies to be able to have more for any kind of hospital claims or transportation. But the goal is this fund is self-sufficient, and we do not do any kind of transfers from general fund into our healthcare fund. This takes care of all of our all of our healthcare related expenses based on those 2 tax collections. So this one's a pretty easy one to end on. We will have the safety net care pool designation. It typically comes in the first quarter. So we should know if we're going to need any kind of budget adjustment after that point. Yes, we anticipate there will be more travel and much more need for education. Carol is an absolute genius at healthcare, and it was very purposeful getting her over here to the county when I came, just bringing her from the hospital, because her incredible knowledge and wealth of background, 25 plus years experience, she knew how to handle these claims. So when you see, hospital claims and healthcare claims of $1,100, that's Carol doing her job and doing it above reproach and just blowing everyone's mind. Do you want to turn on the light? No, she's full-time, but we don't know. It's only a portion of her salary, as the other comes out of general fund, because she does road. She helps with all the grants and the paperwork and stuff for Rick's funding and everything. She does all special projects as well as healthcare. So she just wears multiple hats. But healthcare wise, this one is one that we're really watching, and she is able to give us advance notice. So you'll see, like, we anticipate we're going to bring somebody in, hire them ahead of time, have a longer training period, transition, just to ensure a successful transition, because there's no way we're ever going to get 30 years of knowledge out of her head, and she's not replaceable. At this point, you have to find somebody that's trainable, and then hopefully we'll be able to contract with her like we've done with Deb and HR and things like that, and just utilizing, as they retire and everything, being able to pull from that. But she's earned it, and she's at that point, but it is a hard one to think about losing when you think about all the healthcare knowledge that she has. It's just incredible from all of her years of experience. So, Mhm. Yeah, that's why you don't get to take your binder home. It's because I have more fun things to put in there and everything. So we have it scheduled to start back tomorrow at 9. And there are some more that I was waiting on, some final figures and some things. If y'all have some, like Patrick gave y'all a handout and some things, if you'll leave those, we'll make sure that we punch holes and put those in with extension information in your commission. Perfect. Perfect. We'll just make sure everything's put in there for y'all in your binders.